how to buy a home here in Japan. My wife and I are in the process of buying a home here in Japan, and I want to welcome all the new viewers to Gap Year Dad Japan. I'm an Australian dad of 4 kids who recently moved to Japan with my Japanese wife, and in today's episode it's how to buy a home in Japan. We're in the process now, so my wife is behind the camera and we're going to essentially talk through all the steps that are required to buy a home. So hopefully it can help some of you at home if you're considering buying a home here in Japan, either as a holiday home or to live longer term. These are the steps that you need to take to hopefully avoid some of the pitfalls that we have fallen for in our journey here buying a home. So I'll pass to my wife, who might ask the first question, and we'll start from there.
Yeah, so we had a lots of inspection of the house or room like available in the market from the searching web page and things.
Yeah.
And we went to inspection, and then so we found the one we like.
Yeah.
And what did we do after?
Yeah, so thankfully we're now in the position I want to announce that we've found the property for us, and we really liked it, but we weren't sure whether the owner was going to be willing to sell it to us. In Japan, you have to think about, it's different from Western countries. You have to think about the owner's respect and the respect for the home. And as a buyer, even though that in many instances with 9 million IKEA or vacant homes in Japan, you would think that it's, you can offer the lowest price possible and the seller will just accept it. In Japan, you really need to show respect as the buyer. And in Japan, when you're buying a property, the first step is, once you've found the right property, you've had a look on the website, whether it's Sumo, whether it's at home, whether it's IKEA Hub or IKEA Mart or all the various services, the next step you need to take is to make a formal offer. And so in Japan, there's 2 sides of the real estate transaction. There's a real estate agent for the buyer and there's a real estate agent for the seller. And so you work with your real estate agent for the buyer, which is yourselves, and that you make a non-binding offer. And then your buyer's real estate agent then shares that offer to the seller's agent. So the owner of the homes has their own separate real estate agent who then presents that offer to the owner. And there is a process of negotiation, definitely in Japan, because houses here are plentiful, especially second-hand or used houses. There are millions of vacant houses. Often owners are willing to negotiate somewhat in price. I would say in my experience, what I've seen is around 10 to 15%. But if you have a different experience, leave them down in the comments below. And if you think that there are other tips for the audience, please share them down below if you think our process is different from how your experience was buying a home. So once you've submitted the offer, the owner will then come back. And so for us, the house that we've found, there was a process of essentially negotiation, and it lasted probably about a week, would you say?
Yeah, in back and forth
for about a week. And it can be large amounts. It could be $1 million yen, which is about $7,000 in those sort of increments. And then you're sort of negotiating on the price. Depends on obviously how expensive the property is. Eventually, after a week or so, then you've agreed on a price. The seller's agent and the buyer's agent, your agent essentially, come to an agreement between yourselves on a non-binding price, and then a contract is drafted up between the buyer and the seller. Then there is a few months of waiting, essentially, where you're working on making sure that the boundaries are clear for the property, for example, and that there's a clear line of ownership. In Japan, before the Second World War, there was some issues with essentially unclear records when it came to home ownership. And even after Second World War, there's some issues around scamming, so you have to be really careful. But essentially there's a Japanese land registry office, and they will, through your real estate agent, be able to identify the boundaries of your property, your physical boundaries of your property, as well as the legal rights and ownership of that property, to make sure that everything is done properly and that the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted. And that's so incredibly important.
Yeah. Also, I forgot to mention that before signing the contract, during the negotiation of the price, we also organized the inspector. From the buyer's agency or either from our agency, just third party individual by us. We found.
Good point, and that's a really important recommendation.
To check earthquake plume.
Yeah. So
also, everything.
Costs around $500 to get a proper inspector to come to your property that you're interested in buying and inspect it from an earthquake proofing perspective. But I mean, $500 can save you a fortune. I've had some of our followers on the Gap Year Dad Japan community commenting to me about how they were surprised when they did the inspection report, how damaged the home was. And so even if a home was 20 years old, if it was constructed poorly, in the event of a large earthquake, it literally might fall down, and that obviously creates a risk to you and your family. So $500 is money well spent. It's an investment in making sure that there are no hidden unintended expenses, because earthquake proofing can be very expensive. For example, we looked at one place. Remember the place that we looked at that had cracks throughout it?
Yeah.
And sometimes the earthquake proofing costs, we had an estimate to how much it would cost, and it was almost the same as the purchase price. So say the house cost $70,000, the earthquake proofing could cost another $70,000. So suddenly you're at $140,000 for a home without any renovation or remodeling, and so it makes a big difference. But we did the inspection report, and so now we're in a process of, we've found the property, and now we're waiting for the boundaries to be essentially identified and the registry of the land to be processed. And then eventually, if anyone's seen the show Tokyo Swindlers, it's essentially you bring together the buyer's side and the seller's side physically, or it can be remote, but generally physically, and there's an exchange of identification, there's an exchange of critical documents, and then there's the final payment. So before that, you do have to make a deposit, typically around 1 million yen or $7,000. It can be different. And then on the day that you then sign up to sell the property, or buy the property, should I say, then the balance of the amount owing for the house needs to be paid. And in Japan, you can buy homes here now as cheaply as, or free. Some houses are free, $10,000, $50,000, $100,000, $200,000. Really, any price point you can buy a home here in Japan. But there are no restrictions for foreigners if they want to buy. It doesn't give you automatic visa rights, like we've discovered. But we think it's really worthwhile, and so we'll share in future episodes that process. We're going to hopefully very soon be able to buy our home here, but we've found it and we wanted to let you know. That's great news. But this is a how-to guide of the process and the steps that we've taken to buy a home here in Japan in 2026. If you've got any other tips for the community, leave them down in the comments below. If you think that steps that we've taken are necessary, leave them as well, and your experiences. Give this video a like and subscribe to Gap Year Dad Japan to find our video where we will be buying a property here, and our renovation journey. We have only just started that, and so there's many more great videos to come in the coming months and years. Subscribe and like.